Hi, my name is Paul Friedman. I am founder of the Marriage Foundation, and this is obviously for guys, and it is why is my wife never happy, constantly angry wife, and I'm going to tell you, and you may not appreciate this, but it's very important for you to know so you can do something about it. Now, look, it does happen from time to time that women who are subject, just like men are, to various mental issues. You know, she might be a victim of depression. She might be uncontrolled in her anger. She may have a real problem. A lot of people have anger problems. And I have to ask you right off the bat, are you angry? Do you react to her anger? Because if you do, that's the first thing you need to stop, is reacting to her anger and see what happens. It's the very first thing. And if you're not in charge of your mind to that degree where you can control your anger and you're being triggered and then your anger comes up, you have nothing to complain about, but you have work to do on yourself. So what do you do in the meantime? So I have techniques, because usually anger, the good thing about anger is it's not self-sustaining. Anger is an instinctive reaction. It's part of the drive to survive. And it's a very intense, instinctive reaction that if it were maintained, it would burn you up and you wouldn't last. So what happens is the anger turns into like a lower level anger, an emotional anger, which is something you can work around. So there's two different degrees of anger. One is that burst of instinctive reactive anger, which just is like a wall, and there's nothing you can do. All you can do is duck, and you could practice some techniques that you could learn in communication where you don't take it on. You let it move past you, you duck. And then there's that other level of anger that's emotional, where it's not reactive anymore, but it's carried, and you got to ask why. Why? Because even in those cases, it's a defense mechanism, because we're controlled to a huge degree. Until we take charge of our mind, we're controlled by a huge degree by our instincts and habits and emotions. So that emotion of anger is something that we can work with. And one of the problems that men have is that they don't really care why their wife is angry. And I don't mean because you left the dishes out. I don't mean that kind of thing. But what is her problem? And the reason we don't ask that question, or men don't ask that question, what is the problem? And I don't mean, what is your problem? I mean, what is the problem? Does she need your help? You see, most men aren't sympathetic in that way. They go, what's your problem? When you should be going, honey, let's sit down and talk. Let's try to understand why you're feeling this way. Let me get you a glass of water, because that helps dissipate the anger. Let's go for a walk, because breathing helps dissipate that anger. And let's see if we can talk it out. You know, one of the things, the way women are designed psychophysiologically, speaking, talking about it is very helpful for them. So you might want to try that. Now, you may be triggering her all the time. Now, technically, that's not really your fault, but because you're married to her, it is your concern. You know, not everyone is like you. She's not like you. She's going to be triggered by certain things, and out of love, out of the respect of love, It is your duty to not punch those nerves, to not hit those triggers when you know they're there. So if you know saying something about her sister being fat is going to trigger her, don't do it. And avoid those topics. There's a lot of topics you can choose from that are going to make her happy, and those are the topics you should choose. You know, everyone thinks, hey, I want to be honest with her, I want to be open. And they don't realize that that doesn't include being a jerk. You know, just because you want to be open, just because you want to be honest, doesn't mean you get to be crude and rude and mean. So you really ought to read one of my books. It gives really good guidelines about what to say, what not to say, and why. And you need to get a handle on your marriage and get to the sort of the core dynamics of your marriage. You should understand your wife better. You should understand her well enough so you're not stepping on her toes. And this shouldn't be because, you know, you're going to get something back. You should be doing it for the right reason, which is because you love her, right? I mean, that's what you promised when you got married. I will love you, I will treasure you, oh, you're my goddess, blah, blah, blah. You're not acting that way. And so maybe if you started acting that way, it would help her calm down. Now, it's true, women hide a lot of things until after they're married. So you don't know that you're stepping on these toes because you didn't know they existed. But they do, and it's still your job to find out. You should be striving for marital bliss, not just calming down her anger. You should be striving for a happiness that you cannot find anywhere else in life. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's on you to look for that. And I'll guide you in how. It's in my books, it's in my program. If your marriage is on the verge, it probably isn't. One of my books will be fine. But you really need to do this kind of research. You need to learn how to be married. When you do, you're never going to complain about your wife being angry. You're never going to be defensive about your wife being angry. You're going to be loving, considerate, and caring. Okay, I don't mean to put it all on you, but you know you have some work to do. So, hopefully this was useful and helpful for you. I hope so, I really do. So like it, communicate with me in the body down below. Share it if you think it's valuable. And other than that, blessings to you, blessings to your wife, and blessings to your family.